So that was a very, very important turning point for labor in the United States. Then, very important turning point for Teamsters in the United States. 1984, again, this goes to our political history. Rudy Giuliani, was a federal prosecutor. He's the same Rudy Giuliani that is acting as counsel for President Trump today. Rudy Giuliani was a federal prosecutor, and President Reagan put him in charge of investigating the Teamsters. There was rampant fraud, all kind of things going on. So in 1984-85, roughly 600, 700 Teamsters were either put in jail or kicked out of the union. And a new set of laws went in. And in 1984 or 85, might have been 86, but 85, we went into what is called a consent decree. Consent decree did a lot of good, a lot of bad, but it also did a lot of good. The good things were each vote counts. Prior to this, we had delegate voting, just like IA has delegate voting, which means it's kind of like the electoral college. Means that just like in this last contract negotiation, the IA general membership voted, there were more no votes than yes votes, but the contract passed anyway. Why? Because there's different voting. One vote does not count per person in IA, okay? But it does for us. So the rules were laid down. One vote counts, so that Jimmy's cousin wasn't always getting elected president year after year after year after year, or term after term after term. And it went under government control. Now what they did was they set up a panel, was the IRB, the Internal Review Board, of 3 retired federal prosecutors, and they have been overseeing what's going on in our union, in the Teamsters, since then. Now, they cut a deal with Obama to get out of consent decree. It just took a while. 2021, there's a national election coming up. Sean O'Brien and Zuckerman are running against, if James P. Hoffa, decides to run again, or if it's going to be Hall running. But in any rate, 2021 will be the last election that will be monitored by the federal government, and we will come out of consent decree. The government claims that consent decree costs Teamsters about $3 million a year. Teamsters records have shown that it's between $7 to $12 million a year in cost on average. It's very expensive to supply this. So it's an oversight board now instead of 3. And in 2021, Teamsters come out of consent decree, and that'll be the last election monitored by the government. So that's a big thing to pay attention to as well. It's very important to see what happens. Last thing listed up here is the Janus. That was a Janus decision that the Supreme Court made. It's about right to work and union dues, and it right now affects only public unions, not private. We are a private union. So this is very important because the Janus decision came down in 2018. The number one contributor to the financial pot, if you will, for the Janus Defense Fund was the Right to Work Defense Fund, the Right to Work Foundation. The number one contributor to the Right to Work Foundation are the Cook brothers, okay? Now, let's put the pieces all together, this whole timeline. Right to Work Foundation, which backed this decision wholeheartedly, was founded in 1948. One of the founding members of the Right to Work Foundation was Robert Taft, the senator who wrote the Taft-Hartley Act and who pushed it through Congress. So the Right to Work Foundation is founded in 48, and it's been involved in every decision in labor all the way up to here, in and including the Janus Act. 1980, Ronald Reagan gets elected president. Let's go back to 1959. Who was the young liberal Democrat who was president of SAG? Ronald Reagan was the president of SAG. He organized the strike, followed through, won the strike, got actors' residuals, became the governor of California in here somewhere, and went from liberal to conservative. So what I'm telling you, this is a very fluid motion. Economics, politics, everything that is involved in union decision-making throughout the modern history of unions from 1850 on up to 2050, is all wrapped up in politics.